Great, are we ready to get going?
Well, it's not 7 minutes.
Oh, now it is.
All right. We'll go ahead and get this meeting started. If we want to stand for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next on the agenda is roll call, but if we want to just go ahead and maybe introduce ourselves so that everybody is aware of who everybody is. Go ahead and start with you.
Brian Wagner, here.
Elizabeth Wright, President, City Council.
Jessica is just a regular city council person.
Petra, City Council.
Audrega, City Council.
James Gould, City Council.
Rick Holmbaum, City Manager / Recorder.
Leah Kasachev, Director of Petition Court. David Stevens, Superintendent. Maria Contreras, Director. Anna Contreras, School Board Member.
Shane Jones, Chairman. All right. What's next?
Well, we have an agenda here for your review. I mean, I don't think there's any adjustments to it. Just we have some winning lottery numbers or anything. Probably not today. Okay, so the first item is the student population trends. I did create a PowerPoint. So sorry, Rick and Dave, I'm kind of pushed your next a little bit. I didn't have a chance to create a whole packet for people to have, but I will make that available. Get this thing going here. Okay. So the first thing we're going to talk about are student population trends in relation to your school district. And so what we did is we pulled up some data beginning in 2019-20 up through as of yesterday, I think were the data points. I think it's important to note that for Gervais Elementary School, when Dr. Helms started in 2017, he had an enrollment of approximately 425 students. And so you can see from 2017 to 2019, the drop that is happening here. And when we look at the overall reduced enrollment numbers at the elementary school, it's tied to what our Portland State study says is a lack of family housing. So there's been housing developments coming in, but people who can come in with children or starting their families here, the price point is too high for families with children that age or people who might be having children. We were really hopeful when the biggest development went in that just finished a couple years ago. We were really hopeful that we would get an influx of kids from that. Just because the homes were so large, we thought, oh, great, multi-generational housing opportunities, but we actually didn't realize any kind of significant enrollment bump due to that increased housing. So as you can see, we are at 383 today, or yesterday. And what's important to note that what is also starting to change is that K-5, typically we don't get a lot of inter-district transfer kids, so kids coming from Salem Kaiser or Woodburn, because it's harder to manage little kids if you don't live in the town where they're going to school, right? They don't have neighbors to walk to, maybe daycare is not there, so parents tend to keep their elementary children wherever they're living, and then the older kids would transfer in. They lived in Woodburn or Kaiser. So this year we have seen actually quite a large influx of transferring elementary students. We've got a total of 41, which is higher than we've had before by about 25 students. And then At 6 through 8, you'll see that there's 30 kids that are transferring in, and then at 9 through 12, it's 57 kids transferring in. And so it's great that we have these kids transferring in because unlike other districts, we're not really seeing a declining enrollment unless everybody decides to take their kid and send them back to their home school. When we have 128 kids transferring in, that equates to about $1.4 million. Our general fund is a total of 11 million. So that would be a huge number to try to absorb if they were all decided to take their kids and go someplace else. What you can see here is that our middle school is getting back close to pre-pandemic levels, but again, that's due to transfers, not necessarily kids who live in the district. And the high school, the numbers are kind of deceptive here because in this year, in 2019, that was the last year that Sam Brown Academy, which was our alternative high school, was in existence. So we probably had 60 kids that were going to that alternative high school. We consolidated that school into a program within the high school, which then saw a huge bump of the number of kids that we had in our high school, but also we had the fifth year seniors more than we had before because of COVID. And then that started dwindling, and so now we're to 309. Yeah, just a check question.
Yeah, the transfers, 128 in and 20 out.
Yeah.
Is that new ones or is that including the ones that have been pre-existing?
That is just for this year. We're only keeping it for this year. So there are other kids who've transferred out and just stay transferred out.
Gotcha.
Just as there are other kids who've transferred in and stay transferred. So,
Thank you.
Their parents aren't required to fill out the transfer paperwork again until they actually move buildings. So if you are a fifth grader and you want to be sixth grade Gervais school district participant and you're not in district, that's when you fill out the paperwork again. And then same thing when you go to high school. So that's, again, we're one of the few districts that has seen what we call increased enrollment, but it is also a very possibly unstable reason for enrollment increase that we have to be mindful of. And so then when you look at this chart here, it just breaks it down by grade level. We have the demographics here, but overall at kindergarten, we have 60 kids this year. And the idea is that you want to have the same number of kindergartners as you have seniors exiting. It got cut off there, but we have 89 seniors. So we're at a deficit there, right? If you just want to try to remain neutral. But we always seem to get a lot of high school kids transfer in. Our junior class is quite large. We have 93 kids and a lot of transfers in that class. But the great thing is, as at 60 kids, we have small kindergarten size, and each kindergarten classroom has an aide as well. So I also think that's why you see people transfer in, because even with the transfers, we still have small class sizes, which makes it nice for kids to get individualized help. So that's all I have on school population trends. From my first year here, I started conversations with the prior city manager about what could we do to kind of make Gervais an attractive location for people to not only transfer their kids here, but want to move here and be part of our community. So I'm excited that we're having an opportunity to start again with those conversations. That's all I have for student population trends. If anybody has any questions.
Do you project decrease like the other schools, like Wilburn's gonna project a decrease?
We are, so for our funding for this year, we projected 900 kids. We're at 908. So I think that we are being really mindful of what's happening. The declining birth rate is a problem, but also whatever's going on at the federal level that's creating issues for our families. So I don't think we expect a drop. I think that if we were going to have a drop, we would have seen it already. Like it would have been happening. But I think that flat at 900 and flat really is a cut, right? Because the inflation cost of everything goes up. State school funds.
I'm surprised there hasn't been an increase with all the housing.
Yeah, we were really hopeful. In fact, I had Celia run the numbers right after the development was all done, and then a year after, and we didn't get.
It was like even with the new apartments, huh?
What is the border for those school districts? In fact, it's So Brooks.
Say it again.
The border.
boundary.
Oh, the boundary. Yeah, it's Brooks. It's weird. It's Brooks. It goes out really close to St. Paul, then up above Woodburn, and then down and over to towards Monitor and Silverton. It is not. It is weird. And then kind of like towards Lake LaBiche. And we have some Gervais kids that actually have Kaiser address.
Remember that.
Yeah.
In the mail house,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah. So it's kind of hard to predict. All I have.
Good evening. I gave you a handout for the report. I believe that the basis of what I would like to share in this evening. A lot of our projected housing expectations are based upon, not unlike your organization, the whim and will of the state legislature. Essentially, we have seen significant rule changes about housing requirements, zoning, lot size. Our current governor made housing a priority when she was Speaker of the House. And so we have seen, cities have seen different rules and regulations. And I'm going to touch upon the most recent ones. And some of these are still having administrative rules written to match the legislation. The city by law is required to have enough developable land available for future development for the next 20 years. Gervais does not have that. So Gervais is out of compliance with Department of Land Conservation and Development state policy, mostly gold 10. However, there's no hammer. Since legislature and pulled funding for doing things like urban growth boundary movements, housing studies, there has been no enforcement of that state policy. The fact that Gervais has been out of compliance for a number of years, and it takes 2 to 3 years to change. It's a standing static situation. So recently the city applied for a grant to have a housing needs analysis study done. We did not get it. We were hopeful based upon the fact that we're in compliance, but what it did do was put us in a better position, at least among our staff, as to looking at what it is we do need to be looking at, what we need to do about our future, and how are we going to get there. I happen to be a city manager and has a little bit of planning background, which is a little bit different than the background of the most recent ones here. There was a study done in 2015 that was not the full-blown thing, but that study about our housing population and the growth needed to maintain the state expectation resulted in a supply deficit of 74 acres, which means based upon the study done in 2015, the city of Gervais should or need or should at least consider expanding their urban growth boundary by 74 acres. For whatever reason, back in 2015-16, that did not happen. But that gives you a time frame and a goal of what we, I mean we, it's a joint project here, should be looking at that time period based upon the data of 2015. We should expand our urban growth boundary by 74 acres. Now, since then, due to the changes in legislative law, housing and development, the formula has totally changed. And so that figure, while accurate for 2015, may or may not be accurate now, because a lot of demographics have entered into the picture, including social economic demographics. In other words, now when we talk about housing expansion in the state of Oregon, they want us to count the level of social economics of that household, medium, low, high. So, you need to have housing that this group of population can afford. You need to have housing that this group of population, and typically there's at least three, and this. So it's no matter, now it's no longer a definition of 74 acres. It's a matter of how many units you should develop according to the state as it relates to the city of Gervais. So different affordability groups can. So we count it in a totally different way. And it's a very complicated formula, and we have not initiated that because the rulemaking for that process is still underway, based upon legislation. Currently, the city of Gervais has 6 acres that are in the urban growth boundary and not in the city limits. Our city limits are city corporate limits. The urban growth boundary is our city corporate limits plus, in theory, the next 20 years of growth, be it 74 acres, or in our case currently 6 acres. So we have reached more or less pretty significant build out. We are losing, we have very little what's called infill. We have very few empty lots. Today, we had a developer come in with a plan to develop the property on 5th and A or B, Birch, 5th and Birch, and put in somewhere between 8 to 10 units. And I anticipate that they will be moving forward on that project. They haven't submitted the permits yet. It was a pre-application. So we have a few individual lots here and there, right off the end of your driveway, where students come in and out. There's a single lot that someone's looking at putting 4 units on. Infill is getting filled. And so we, the city, I will be recommending to our council and planning commission that we start the process. It starts with a housing needs analysis study, which we did not get a grant for, as I mentioned, but we need to move this process forward. But again, there's no hammer. It's not a matter of us getting a letter from the state saying we're out of lines. It's the guidelines of the state assigning it to the cities to implement. In 2024, the Department of Administrative Services, sort of the general administrative branch of the state government, based upon what they defined as the state housing needs, tasked the city of Gervais that they need to create 249 living units. Again, we don't have the property to do that. Again, we haven't started that study, that process yet. And again, there's no hammer, so to speak, as it relates to you shall, you must, within a certain time frame. Again, these are guidelines, directions from the state administrative services based upon population estimates from the same source as you get yours, Oregon State University Population Research Center, which administers for the state all of the population estimates and development plans and directions as it relates to the demographics of the population within the state of Oregon. So A, we need acreage, but we don't know how much. B, the state has assigned us 249 units as our magic number or our goal that we should be addressing. And again, our housing needs analysis study would modify that number perhaps. So, in recent years, there's been a series of state legislation intended to increase housing production across the state. Due to the current Gervais population, which exceeds 2,500, that is a threshold in the legislation, the city is subject to a number of new provisions in these housing bills. The Council of Governments has secured funding from the Department of Land Conservation and Development to provide and perform revisions to our development code in compliance with the housing bills. And we expect to start that work in the spring of 2026. So we're going to be making some changes to our development code as a result of the legislation, but changing to our development code is not implementing new houses. It's changing our process, our policies, and our implications as it relates to our future housing needs and defining them. So I think I have two more points that I'd like to share. One of the most notable changes related to local housing supply in Gervais applies to duplexes, 2 dwelling units on a property. Now, we just did that at 200 and 220 Juniper Street. According to the Oregon Revised Statutes, each city not within a metropolitan service district with a population of 2,500 or greater and less than 25,000 shall allow the development of a duplex on each lot or parcel zoned for residential use that allows for the development of detached single-family dwellings. So despite our current code, and part of the change that's going to happen in our code is that anybody that owns a single-family lot is now allowed to put a duplex on it.
No matter the size. No matter the size of the lot. something like that.
As long as it's over 3,500 square feet in almost every single property lot, there may be a few exceptions to that. But now, so again, Juniper just did that, and we have 220 Juniper, 200 and 220 Juniper just did that. Just completed that project. It was a staff level decision based upon what staff approves versus what the planning commission approves versus what the council approves. There was public comment from neighbors not in favor of that, but essentially ORS says thou shalt. So unless there's a darn good reason, it's hard for us to say no. Now, the neighbors' issues, quite honestly, mostly was related to parking and transportation, and rightly so. Essentially, what the state code does is allow 2 residents where there was 1, and there's no more street to park on than there was when there was 1. There's 2, and you have twice as many vehicles, most likely. So the state is requiring this process of allowing duplexes on single family. So is there a potential that everybody's going to go out and double our population? I don't think so. Well, we've already done 1 and we got 2 more in the hopper. Is it going to be contagious and catch fire? I don't think so. About 4 years ago, the state allowed accessory dwelling units to be built on property. And all of us, myself included, was fearful about what that's going to do to our population. Can our water plant handle that? Can our sewer plant handle that? But, you know, nowhere within the state has it become a big, major, significant issue as it relates to increasing population based upon the same accessory dwelling units, granny flats, or whatever you want to call them. It just hasn't happened. Will that happen with tightening housing? Maybe, but that is another new recent code amendment that we are required to allow based upon the size of a lot. So I guess I'm just giving you a heads up that there are opportunities for expanding population, increasing population. And we are increasing or changing our development code in order to maintain some standards based upon state direction. But how active it's going to be, only time will tell. Again, we only have 6 acres in the space between the city limit line and the urban growth boundary. My professional opinion is that we need to expand our urban growth boundary. We just don't know how much. But it was interesting as a neutral party watching our interviews when we interviewed 4 candidates for city council. The consistent comment was not wanting to see Gervais grow too much. So one of the conversations I see as staff happening, what's the right amount? And that is going to be a conversation which I would hope the school district would be a little bit more supportive of, based upon how it affects your school district. I have no idea if you could handle, if we had an increase of every house going to be a duplex and your student population increased by 50%, are you able to do that? What is it that you would see as the perfect size if you're a participant in the conversation? Those are sort of just questions that I don't expect. It's a rhetorical question at this point, but it is a futuristic question that I think the school board may want to consider. So right now, the city of Gervais, and I mean right now, despite what our code says, the city of Gervais is now required to allow the development of a duplex on any property where a single family home may be constructed. So this eliminates the city's ability to enforce a minimum lot size only on larger lots, on any lot. All other development standards continue the same, including parking, setbacks, utilities. And then the last line here is about what we call middle housing land divisions. And this is coming down the pipe. And it is the process of allowing more than just accessory dwelling units to be added to lots. The accessory dwelling unit happened by state law about 4 or 5 years ago, but other types of housing are being considered as alternatives to increased density that have yet to be established. It's called middle housing. And again, economics, social economics is an important part of that conversation based on housing needs. But Oregon's sort of been out in front of this. Oregon and New York have been the most, shall we say, progressive, or it depends on your perspective. Oregon and New York State, the most active in considering what is middle housing development page. There's printed stuff out there. I have stuff that if you're interested, I'm happy to share. But it is sort of the future housing policy that's coming down the road. How much growth are we going to have? It's going to be more determined by where and when we move our urban growth boundary and by state legislation, which I find a certain sense of harmony since I know how much you folks get to decide based upon state legislation. But that is our window into the future as it relates to housing development. Staff is recommending that we reinitiate, create a city planning commission, because development is going to become a more significant community issue. And council has their hands full, and the council is in better position to be appealed to after a decision is made by planning commission. Because the planning commission can include the community perspective. And then the council will be the appeal based on. So whether or not the council heads in that direction, I don't know. We'll be talking about it. I expect at our goal setting session tomorrow night, among other stuff, but that will be just part of our organizational change to have more resources dealing with development issues. That concludes my prepared remarks, but I am happy to respond to the questions.
So you need a housing needs analysis study, technically, in order to figure out what to do. But you were denied or not given the grant that was necessary for that.
That is
Do you
correct.
have a grant writer on your city team that does any grant writing for you?
We don't have an outside grant writer on our city team, but I have significant experience, especially as it relates to infrastructure grants.
So you're doing the grant writing specifically for that. And then, so what's the next step then? Since that didn't.
Well, our next step is to get our code up to date to deal with this duplex issue.
Mhm.
Because right now, we're having to step aside from our existing code when it comes to it, because state was mandated. So right now, our next project is update our code to existing state code, both as accessory dwelling units and this duplex issue on the thing, and establish the rules and regulations. After that, it's a matter of looking at where else we could get funding for the housing study, housing needs analysis study. And they do annual grants. So right now, it's a matter of finding another source or looking at next July when the state is doing another round of grants.
So that'd be next July.
I think decision date is July. I think we actually apply in March.
And what does that take when you do the grant writing for it? Like, what kind of information are you putting in there when you're actually asking for the grant? Because that is so much work that's done in that part. I'm just wondering how you guys get going on that.
Well, we have two major, I guess, arguments. One is non-compliance, and two, we have a deficiency in staff levels that we can do this internally, so we need to hire it out.
Yeah, I have a question now, more than anything, is how, okay, so you're out of compliance, and you're out of compliance with the Gervais urban growth boundary that's required, right? I mean, you technically need quite a few more acres from what I can see. So, and then we're out of compliance, I mean, basically, they gave this, the state gave you some regulations that we have to follow, or guidelines, okay. So I guess my question to you is, wouldn't it make more sense to make sure we have that Gervais urban growth boundary set up, so then you have that, so people can actually have a 100 by 100 lot, if that's what they're looking for? I mean, versus putting these duplexes on, I mean, I'm just trying to figure out which steps should be done first before we start implementing the guidelines that are.
I think we're just saying that we have to have our code up to date first before we would look at expanding the urban growth.
But you're out of compliance with both, is what I'm saying. So which one is, which supersedes, I guess, is my question.
We have the ability to change the code. We don't have the ability or resources to do the study. So we're doing what we have the ability to do.
So the code is corrected inside the city council. Which amongst city council.
The code is written and drafted by myself and the city contract planner, and it's adopted by ordinance by the city council.
What are the revisions that you intend to make to it to?
Well, we need to change the code as it relates to the ability to put duplexes on property,
But you're-
on lots, and we need to change the code as it relates to accessory dwelling units and additional units allowable within the lots. We will also change, most likely, the size of the lots, in the way of what a minimum lot size is. So
So then you would have to comply with the guidelines of the lot size issue.
yes,
And when the state is asking for 249 units that are needed, I mean, how would you possibly be able to do something like that? I mean, I can see why we're not in compliance on any of the things that they're recommending. Not to mention, I don't even know how our infrastructure is keeping up with what we have right now. Like, with the water system is a hot mess. I mean, we got water issues all the way from Sacred Heart down to the bunch of the houses there that have don't have high water pressure, all kinds of issues. And so I guess for me, when we say that we don't want so much growth here, that's not really what we're talking about. What we're talking about is making sure that we do have parking spaces because people are parking on their lawns, making sure that we have the infrastructure in place to actually have growth occur. And I guess those are my concerns as a local community resident.
so what are you suggesting we do different?
I'm suggesting we get going on what we need to do to change the code to fix things. And the idea of a city planning commission that you're suggesting to get together sounds like a great idea, because we're board members. We know exactly how much work it takes. This is not a paid job. This is not a paid position. We all have, jobs and understand that we have limited resources and time. The board has that as well, just like you guys do. We're trying to be able to work with you to figure out a way that we can improve Gervais across the board, not just with our school here, but like the entire community. There's been so much dissent and so many things that we need to work through because of the past several years. We finally have the bond going. We finally have really great things happening in the community. It'd be great if we could all work together. One of the biggest problems is definitely here in Gervais is figuring out housing and how we can help people, have great things that they can, afford, because it is difficult. I get that. It's also difficult when you're right next to a duplex where there's no parking. And I'm not saying that solely, is your guys' issue. It's an issue of the community that we all have to figure out how to work together and fix. And so that's what we're trying to do.
I refer to my earlier comment is that it's my opinion that we need to answer the question together as to what the right amount of growth is for our community.
Mhm.
And I thought that was sort of the underlying of why I'm here tonight, is to express that we need to work together in determining what is the right amount of growth and how we're going to do it. That should not conflict with your perspective.
It doesn't.
Oh, okay.
Why would you think that it did?
Well, it sounds like you want to do something different.
In what way?
You were suggesting that we move forward as I have proposed, and at the same time are concerned about the dissent within the community. And you're right on both accounts, but I think that I was attempting to express, we need your help with that dissent.
That's exactly what I was saying, is that as a community, we all have to come together and work together. This doesn't solely rely on city council. It relies on every single resident that lives here and that has lived here for a really long time, and that this is our home. So that was me saying, I think that doing a city planning commission group would be great. I agree with changing the code, like, that was all in what I was suggesting and saying. So it wasn't,
What type of information from us would be useful to you in your decision-making and planning? In regards to the amount of students? What kind of information do you need?
What is the standard within your profession as it relates to students per household?
Students per household?
or an average.
Lots of them.
I mean, even if you think about it, how many transfer ins we have, right there, and the amount of associates that we
So,
have.
so if our current goal is 249 units, if we wanted to accept the state's direction. If our current goal is 249 units, what is based upon within the education field? What would be your expectation as it relates to student population based upon 249 housing units? I have no idea.
I think it's in flux. I mean, that's part of the problem. I mean, they got 68 units in the IP Woods. It didn't increase. It depends on who moves in. Specifically when you're looking at duplexes, you'd be looking at probably lower income people. They tend to have more kids. So I'd expect an increase. The thing that I'm struggling with this whole conversation is this concept of like the 249 units. Housing planning, all that stuff, it's all moot until we fix the water. And then, and I think, so Mrs. Contreras, is that correct? Point, the people here at this table right now, all on both sides, are invested in the community. That's why we're doing it for free. That's kind of the whole idea. It's the people who, and while you may feel like you want the infrastructure, there's a fairly large constituency here who just don't want anything to change ever. And so it's really about how to, from my perspective, how to get more people on board to this idea that we are going to grow. Because when we did the bringing on of new city council members, we heard over and over and over again. 20 years from now, they won't have the exact same population. And I was like, that's not reality. So, if we're looking at things like increasing the water and things like that, hopefully we can get a bond, but not a bond, but a grant, but like also what's our community willing to do to make that happen? And that's something right now, it feels like, and you guys experienced the school bond is nothing. So how do we make that happen is my curiosity. How do we increase the water so we can actually be able to do this? Because I remember with Mr. Polisek, he said, the developer comes in and says he wants to do it, we have to allow them, and we don't have the water to do it. So how do we fix this? My question. So that's where my head's at.
Well, especially because remember when the snowstorm and all of those things, maybe from 5 years ago, there was a huge issue that happened. I don't know, Kyle, they were able to get a grant of some kind that was able to help with that. I mean, I don't know, you guys would know more about that than me, but I remember there was a grant that came in for some sort of work that was able to be done for that. So that's the kind of stuff I'm asking in terms of like, are those things available out there for us that we can?
This is what I think I'll defer to Rick, but I feel like right now, the way the world is, the way everything is going, everybody's asking. Everybody's like, help us, help us, help us, help us.
I think to answer more of Anna's questions, we're having a goal setting tomorrow night,
Oh,
which is gonna directly address our infrastructure, our transportation. Right, so we are all,
our priorities,
Yeah.
basically.
so we're gonna be addressing all tomorrow night. We had this first, and we gotta hear from you guys too about what you need as well, so we make sure we put that in our goal setting.
Are we putting schedule, like projecting schedules about due dates and timeline? What you guys are
Tomorrow,
hoping for? Yeah.
For our goals,
I think it's more of a list of
Priorities.
priority. What because if some people will say, hey, we want a new park, and that's great. Is that our number one thing on the list, or is number one thing on the list parking? Or is the number one thing on the list fixing our water? Where do we? I mean, you guys understand this. Like where we have limited resources. Where do we put it? And so I think that is the crux of what's going to happen tomorrow. There's another piece of this though, is that 1, 2, 3, 4 of us have 14 months left, so only one of us is here for the next 3 years. We can do this goal planning thing, we're going to, but I can't promise that the next group of people will on it. So that's kind of, but we can't do nothing. So
We're gonna start somewhere.
yeah, right.
You gotta start somewhere. And the whole thing about getting people on board, I think everybody's been trying to do that. A lot of problem we have with the small community is the fact that it is a small community. Everybody knows each other. And a lot of the loudest people here, the ones that have lived here so long that they've got their hands on everybody's doorknobs. You know, I mean, the bond finally passed, thanks to your diligence and everything, the way you guys went about it. Tactically, it was the perfect way to go about it. It's gonna cost you more in the end if you don't do it now. You know, as for us trying to get other people, more people involved and on board, it's gonna take more positive pushing all the way around, but it's gonna take this by all of us. You know,
That's
I
a
mean,
perfect, I think that's a perfect, a strategy to kind of be on and to begin with. And unfortunately, it will take all of us to speak and be loud and to advertise that and to look at that. And again, nobody thinks like us. That's why we're here.
No.
You know, after our full-time job.
everybody fears change. Everybody does, no matter who they are, who they are. But we have to change in order to progress. We all know this. So everybody's screaming, no, we don't want to change next 20 years. That's not realistic at all for anybody, not even for them. No matter what, they probably said that 20 years ago. Look what's happened since then. We've got several hundred more people. It's
Is there an ideal number of students you'd like to have? Like
Perfect.
increase over year over year, like, you know, hey,
Yeah, so also it's important to note that if we were to get this influx of kids living here, then we would uninvite the transfers, right? Because it's our duty to educate people that really have to live here first. So in theory, I could ask 128 people to leave.
so you, as of right now, you couldn't,
No, we could, so
but
we
only
could-
128 people you have to.
No,
Right.
What's the capacity?
I
Right
think,
now?
well, at the elementary school, we were at 425 and had room. So I think you could go up to 450 there, so that's, I mean, we're at 380 now, so you've got another. At the middle school, we're building it to have a capacity of 400 kids, so you could do another 200 there. And then at the high school, that would be a little tight, we're off 2 classrooms, but there's some adjustments we could make, I think you could get us to 350.
And you're, sorry, you're what now?
309.
Do you currently have any students who are challenged?
Oh, yeah. Yes, we have significant struggles in our community with.
Which that's why I think the economic part of that
Yeah,
report is
right.
gonna be helpful, because
Right.
I think we're on the lower income
Mhm.
side in this community.
100%.
So I think that would say a lot in regards to what needs to be kind of built and available.
I mean, I think that also when you think about our families and what they need, you know, the fact that we're really resource poor here, unless we bring anything in, they have people who bring in the shot clinic van and the eyeglasses and the hearing and the dentist. So they have to have some place that they can, you know, grocery store. That's
The
challenging.
library too.
Huh?
The library coming still too.
Yeah, we could have a bookmobile, what they call it now. Like your summer food program that we sponsored here at the high school parking lot, you know, we were the second largest site in the state of Oregon, competing against Hillsborough, who had 43 sites. We generated the second highest number in the state, which tells you how much food scarcity you've got going on.
And that wasn't just Gervais, I heard it was some Woodburn too.
Oh, their
And some
people are
Brooks and
hungry.
whatnot, too,
They're,
so yes.
How do you get the funding for that?
so, well, that was reimbursable from the federal.
Oh, and that
Government.
might go away because of the.
And that's the other things, depending on whatever happens, you know, starting November 1st, or
Right.
however long the shutdown goes down. Our kids are gonna be in trouble.
I have a question for Rick then. So, if a developer comes in, you can't, but we would want to get, I don't wanna say cheaper houses, but how do you get those developers who will build? Because people wanna make money. How do you get them to come and build in your,
Who wants to
city.
build a Section 8 housing?
right, how do you get that?
using section 8 as a, for an example, um, it's tough because typically section 8, first avenue of cutting costs is to come to the municipality and say, we don't want to pay the SDCs,
What is STC? I'm sorry.
system development charges.
Okay,
So, right now we have a connection fee of whatever it is, 3,000, 4,000 for new units to connect to existing water, sewer, wastewater, stormwater, road, streets, and parks. So we have a system development fee that's not a connection fee. It's a fee based upon how much it costs to develop the sewer treatment plant. And that figure is attached to every lot. And when that lot gets developed, then they pay in. So then all of a sudden we get a request from the developer or in section 8 that wants to cut expenses and then comes to the city council and says, we want an exemption for paying, which means then the rest of the community has to make up for.
and there's no government, especially now, but there's no grants or government assistance for that. I mean, I know because of
Right.
what's happening, they don't want to get to. Very frustrating.
It is very frustrating. And Gervais is not perhaps unlike my experience in Reedsport, when Douglas County came to us in Reedsport and said we want to put in more section 8 housing. And I did a study on where section 8 housing was in the county. Reedsport had 7% of the population for the county, but it already had 17% of the, so there's a balance here. Again, it's a community conversation as to where we see our role as whatever you define a good neighbor to be, as it relates to, are we willing to accept the financial burden of the infrastructure needs based upon allowing someone who cannot afford to move here.
And that would be something that we'd have to put up for a public discussion, and then we would have to vote on it and then check.
Did I get to the question that was asked?
Yeah.
Thank you. But can I ask a question? How much was the grant gonna be? What is the grant award amount that you did receive for
The study.
the study?
For the analysis.
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the answer.
So, but there was a study done back in 2014, but yet it wasn't, the deficit for the urban growth was never implemented, 748, right? Is that correct?
Yes. It wasn't a full-blown study, but it was I think it was a college project or something, but it wasn't a state-blessed study.
Okay, so at least you have a starting point, don't you? I mean, with that saying, okay, we need to annex only 74 acres, I would think.
But I am advised by that the formula has changed dramatically because that study did not involve economics.
Right.
It did not involve having a certain percentage at this economic level, this economic level, and this economic level, which completely changes the formula as to how much housing we are obligated to provide for in a 20-year growth plan.
Yeah, so you just have to scrap the other one.
Yeah, it's
And
20 years
It's like,
ago.
well, you would
starting
think,
over.
I mean, my mind automatically goes to, you're gonna have at least have 74 acres of that.
Well, the question-
So, sorry, that's basically what I'm asking. I mean,
The question I asked was, do we think it's going to be larger or smaller? And the pros say it's an unknown. So I don't know if it's going to go up or down.
logically speaking, I guess my way of thinking, the population is growing here, most likely is, I mean, as you say, 10 years ago when this was done, so.
So the housing analysis, you have no idea how much that costs?
I can find that out.
What'd you say?
Good information.
Question, so if some of the smaller communities are also within the school district. How can we not go to some of those towns and see if, I understand we still have to fix what is happening in Gervais, but can we not also expand there with affordable housing? Is that is part of the school district?
Well, I think-
Not us, but like the school district would actually work with those, yeah.
Well-
municipalities too.
The ones that are not incorporated, you'll be talking to Marion County, Marion
Oh.
census tracts, because they're not Oklahoma City. You'll be talking
Okay.
to Marion County. But some of the standards that we're having to change are based upon the fact that the state law says towns that are larger than 2,500. It's in the legislation. So some of it, yes, when you talk to a different party, and some of it, no, because we're having to do it because we're larger than 2,500.
Well, like even up the road towards Brooks, in Bethel Park, that developer just put in a ton of houses, probably similar to what's here in Gervais. And I don't think that brought in any, new students either. And that was quite a few houses.
I wonder if they thought that was closer to Kaiser to go.
Well, what I'm wondering about the whole thing is whether, and Dan, you pointed the idea that I would ever have about this is when you have like the houses that came to Ivy Woods or things like that, what you have is people moving with families that aren't making families, they already have families, their kids are already in schools. So a lot of families try to keep their kids in those schools. I know I have a neighbor whose daughter was in North Bay and she's staying in North Bay. And it's I'm curious what will happen in the next 5 years about that will come to Ivy Woods. Because for the new kids who are born, that's when I think you'll see it. But you're gonna have a 5-year lag on that at the very least. It's what I believe. I could be wrong, I don't know.
Well, raise the standards.
Yeah, well,
I mean,
like,
right.
special highs in the starting price, $500,000, I'm pretty sure those are prices. There's the other, that's who we're competing against.
We have approximately 6 acres in the grappling still we can use on the south side of town. And the only direction we can go, if I remember right, the annex is going west, like out towards
Towards the river.
the river.
Direction for us will be determined by soil type.
Oh, that's right. And TDM's on. Or TDM.
There varies. I'm sorry.
Will we find out the soil types, or do we know that yet?
You have to get tested, it's a whole other animal.
It's a
We
whole
had to
other-
do that geotesting, which is
Yeah.
why we're drilling
Do we want to find out?
343 piers.
We're gonna have to.
Yeah, you have to do it.
I'm just wondering how much we actually have to.
At a point, but we also want to be careful about speculative. I went to high school in Woodburn, so yeah. I know
You're
words.
right.
Speculation, land speculation. So there's a need to be some caution, but no, the final decision is sort of a balance of soil type and who wants to sell. And we start with soil type.
I talked to Frank several times and he's let me know he's coming south. Woodward's coming south as fast as part they can go.
Yeah, we probably can't go west.
Just concerned if we don't get it first,
It's amazing how
we'll
fast
be in
it
the
grows.
middle of South
Yeah.
Woodburn.
Oh, yeah.
So what else can the school board do to help with this? What other information can we help provide or to assist?
I am asking you to be participants in community discussion about housing.
So come to the city council meetings
Well-
during that? Or I'm asking like what kind of,
Just be engaged in the conversation. If you want housing stuff to talk about within your own board structure, recognize that housing is a critical community issue. And as a school board, you have a place at the table to lead just as much as the council does.
Advocacy? Advocacy?
Am I wrong to say like we just need it like everybody here needs to start talking about as fixing the water. Like, I feel like that's the.
I was just gonna say, like, it's a bigger issue before you move on to building.
It's like everybody wants to keep that kid on the road. They want to focus on everything else. Police departments, I'm not saying anything's not important, but like, every conversation I've had in my limited experience is in bottlenecked by water. And we need to fix it, otherwise everything else kind of gets halted.
Like previously,
Well,
we were
if
talking
you
about.
start growing, then if that is an issue, it's just gonna increase.
Yeah, and you can't stop them from going, so that's just gonna
Yeah.
exacerbate the problem.
Yeah, there's two different directions I've heard to go, crossing 204, it's either throw in the tank over there, third one in, or
Can that be a topic for the next?
start looking at.
For city hall meeting?
drilling.
It's already been discussed, I mean, the person who I have this experience talking about is Kyle. He seems very knowledgeable, then it's always a question of like, how do we pay for it? And that's what it always goes down to, and so, I believe, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Rick, one of the biggest things about, trying to get caught up with the budget, which is delinquent 2 to 3 years, is getting up to where we can actually start asking for grants for this stuff, because it's really hard to ask for a grant when you don't have actual financials.
Budget.
So, I mean,
Can I
we
ask
can't,
whose task or whose responsibility or who's responsible for bringing that or having that information?
People that aren't here anymore.
yeah,
Yeah.
we're fixing stuff.
Right.
We have a budget committee meeting next week.
Yeah.
The previous.
Yes.
But yeah, it feels like we're bottlenecked by, I mean, look, school gets a hard rap, council gets a hard rap. I will say, from my perspective, I've been really proud of the work that the school and the city have done to move us forward, because, we have some problems. Yeah. But that, the water complete, am I wrong, Rick, when I say the water is our biggest bottleneck? Is that accurate?
I would say it's accurate.
So, I know from, like, we haven't had our discussion tomorrow yet, but that's gonna be all I'm talking about, is like, how do we get money to fix our water? Because to me, that's my number one priority, because that's one of those things, well, if they start building, we don't have it, it's gonna be too late.
Yeah, the west side says the pressure is lower than now, but the house is gone, already noticed it.
Mm-hmm. I'm assuming you're already thinking that you're gonna have to increase water bills. I mean, what kind of options are you thinking in order to get that infrastructure put in place? I mean, yes, we're talking grants, but that isn't gonna cover everything. So what other options are there? I mean,
I don't think we've talked about it, but from my perspective, from what we heard from Preston, our water bill already should have went up a long time ago, and we just haven't done it. And I'm sure that's a sword that I'm gonna fall on before I leave. But I think it's much more palatable to do that when you say, hey, we have this grant. So that's covering part of it. We have to pitch in our fair share, as opposed to just like, hey, we need more of your money, because everybody hates that. So if we can at least give them something that makes it feel like it's not all on them. But I don't, again, we're beginning the process. Yeah.
so is there any grants left, I guess, at this point in time that you can apply for?
We have to get our budget fixed yet. We're still in the process of fixing, reconciling our budget for the last 3 years.
And then we're gonna have to look at private grants, like grants from like Amazon, grants from like T-Mobile, like they do the Friday Night Lights. So we're gonna have to look for corporation grants, not government grants. That's gonna be the.
That's gonna be hard.
Yep.
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 Amazon has done nothing to help this.
Well, I'm gonna start.
Help us.
I mean, I don't
Clogging
know.
up the roads.
Yeah, I mean, other than like, there was all this talk of like, but even when we tried to reach out, you didn't get.
Yeah,
Nothing.
they just-
They already built, they don't care.
they just donate 25,000 to somebody.
Not,
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Maybe a dumb question. Is there a reason why we can't get the financials for the past?
We're
3 years?
fixing it, we are, so,
Oh, so we
so-
just fixed it.
we're auditing, yeah, so
Okay.
the hope was at the end of this month, we have the 24-25 or 23-24.
23-24.
And then, once we get that reconciled, then we have to do last year's, and then we can start talking.
So do you have any idea like how much in the hole basically is that we're in?
So,
Gervais, just
so,
in general.
a couple
we
of
have
things
budget?
I'll say off the rip is like, when we talk about in the hole, we gotta talk about general fund. It's not the whole city, one fund. It's the biggest fund. It's not a favorite fund right now. But it's the city of Gervais is not underwater as of right now. It's just reallocation.
Okay.
Correct.
Absolutely.
So then comes this other piece, which you guys, I'm sure, heard about, of people really want us to keep our police force, which we are doing, but our general fund barely covers that. So it leaves very little room to do other things. So that's another thing I want to talk about tomorrow is like, how are we going to fund our police for the next 3 years? Because we can do it, but like that leaves nothing for anything else. So,
Back when we had the talks, or when there was voted about the Donald and Gervais collaborating with the police force.
correct. That was brought up last, the thing, and it wasn't Donald, it was not Angel and
St. Benedict.
And so, yeah,
Oh.
and again, one of the problems I have with this town is not, I shouldn't say it like that, but like everybody has everybody has a demand, but not a lot of people have solutions. So we had that city hall meeting, it was open forum, people brought in, everybody unanimously wants to keep our police force. No one has an idea how to fund it. So, that's what we're gonna figure out, but,
I guess my question was, with collaborating, if we were to go with non-angel, I mean, isn't that something that we should be able to collaborate with non-angel and Gervais pitching in?
I guess is what I'm trying to say is, that was pitched, and everybody at that meeting said, we do not want that.
Oh, okay, so
Yeah.
they're just saying that, oh, we want the police force.
Yeah.
And
That's
the-
what I'm,
Yeah, yeah.
okay.
And the amount of savings, I don't think was, I mean, there was a chunk of change, but it wasn't like,
So
you're still gonna pay for it.
Yeah,
And the concern is with these secondary, the
Yeah.
calls.
understood.
And I think we can point to last Friday's issue of a bunch of things that happened with kids and why we need the police. That was
And
50
that's no
kids
objection,
involved
it's just a
Yeah.
question.
in some going on that probably shouldn't,
Yeah.
have been happening, okay? And an arrest.
And I don't think it's gonna get any easier because we do have the, the nice field that we're gonna be open up to other tournaments and.
Yeah.
So, I mean.
And there is a gang problem in Woodburn and coming this way and all over the place right now. And so as a community member, I can tell you that I definitely want our police here.
Yeah.
You know, and do I have any solutions other than trying to fix our budget so that things, are working? I don't know. I mean, I can't. I understand thinking about why we would want to send it there to Mount Angel, but it's not gonna, in the end, it's not gonna help us. It really isn't when we need protection here, especially with all the things that are happening.
So I guess the question was asked, but posed really, what's the ask? You hit it on the head. Is advocacy for growth, and that's on all facets, advocacy for growth for water, advocacy for growth for whatever fees we need, because that's one of the biggest problems is people want everything, but they don't want to pay for it.
Or even volunteering your time.
And reality is we have to pay more. That's just unfortunate truth. We have to figure it out. And we need to be like saying, hey, how do we do this? Instead of like, we don't want it. How do we do it? Because we don't want to do it. Conversations really are leading us nowhere.
Well, that's not what the board is about.
No, I don't think you are. I don't think you
know
are.
what I mean? That's the whole thing is we want to partner. We want to help, figure out solutions to all of these things. We all live here.
Right.
We want the best, and to advocate. And I know that just on our own, in our own spheres in the community, we are constantly talking about these things and asking for support and asking people to be involved. There is definitely apathy in this town, and it has been here for a very long time. So each member here is continuing to outreach and to talk to people and, try and get that going.
But
I think also
we can't argue that unless we don't give them that information. If we don't give the
Well-
people that information to advocate for, like, hey, reality, this is what it is, this is what we're getting, this is how we're gonna fix it.
Oh.
So if you wanna help us fix the problem, then we need to all, this is it, this is unfortunately, this is the reality of
I mean,
it.
the reality of it is almost everybody here was elected. So we have our own spheres of the community that we influence. And so the real reality for me is like, if someone says about the school district, it's like, no, we help them. So you have to say, yeah, we help them. We do our best. I mean, we may not always agree, but we're always looking to work together. And they need to hear that because from my limited experience, you have been here nowhere near as long as you guys have. But it has been contentious between the city council and the school board, and then you really hear from us, no, school board's cool. No, city council is doing the best they can. They need to hear that we think we are, because if we don't do that, there's gonna be people in our community who basically say, oh, they're not doing enough, or they're not doing enough, or they're not doing enough. It stalls our progress.
It doesn't help with the political Facebook pages.
No comment.
So I think that is right there is the cancer and the tumor. That is really, really what is putting it against our teams right here. That is really what is selling, unfortunate of what our reputations are. To be honest, it's really is unfortunate. And I hope, I would love to see them down because it's not helping anywhere. Everybody, I know it is.
Well, there's so much misinformation.
It is, and that's
I don't know, people are anonymous on there, they're the advocate, they're this.
The
they're
trolls.
that. There's just a bunch of crazy, but neither here nor there on that piece, that's probably not gonna happen.
Right.
Yeah,
It's not to
But
ignore
I
it.
will point out that when we did send out a survey asking about the sidewalk issue, 88% of those folks are saying, we would love for city council and school board to work together. And that is what our constituents are asking for. So it behooves us all to work together and find solutions to help each other, because we are the biggest employers here in the city, period.
And so, yes, I agree with you 100%. But also, from my perspective, people I talk to, I want to be telling them, hey, the school board's doing the best they can. Like, I want them to know that everybody's doing the best they can, because I think there's too much room for people like questioning what people's motives are or why they're doing things. Like, yeah, I just think it goes a long way if you say, hey, they're doing what they can. They're not out to get us. They're not. We're all community working together, and I think highlighting this meeting is a good start.
I agree. I 100% agree.
I'm definitely looking forward to probably November when the bond clear financials. We have more answers. Direction we can go, the goal set in place also that for the budget committee. Because really, we got to get it fixed.
And we're still looking for 3 more.
No, we haven't.
We have it?
Yeah.
We have budget committee members.
Voted on 2.
That's all we needed. We only needed
Oh.
to have the rest of the committee that was still on board.
I also think it would go a long way if people who start spreading this information, that you say, hey, talk to the council members, or hey, if I see them at school, ask Dana, because I don't work there. Like they know the information I don't. So really directing them to the sources of the information. Why, if people think people think the city's doing something or the school board's doing something for a reason, we should be directing them to those people that ask the question, because the motivations, they'll never know unless they ask. And yeah, there's a lot of people saying people do things for certain reasons. I don't feel like there's enough communication, at least on our end, of our constituents actually talking to us. It's always like they're assuming we're doing things for this reason or that reason. So someone says that, like, hey, go ask them. Our emails are on there, phone numbers are on there. I'm happy to have a conversation. It's hard though when people think things are terrible. You know?
Like the newsletter we just did. Okay, come and talk to us. Come in and talk to us. I can guarantee you right now, nobody on those social media sites has ever come up and talked to me personally. On my face.
You don't know they're
Ask
on
me
there.
questions or
One email, anybody.
just
Not
by
even-
the writing and everything else. They never have. You know, I
Well,
call.
anonymous, we're telling you.
That's all you do. I want to talk to you.
I especially for the military, I call them keyboard commandos. Because, you know, so they're behind the keyboard and they're over the screen and that's what they're gonna yell at the screen, but they're getting into everybody else's heads too.
Then we want them to show up to the meetings, at least to voice their concern as public.
Everybody's opinion needs to be heard. I mean, it's
It's valid.
you know, it's valid, I respect it, but you gotta come with solutions too, not just complaints.
I have a question. With the city hall and the school board, have we ever had quarterly meetings together?
Not necessarily.
Or at least twice a year, or anything like that?
Well,
Back in the day, wasn't
we tried to when I first came up here. It did not.
So do you
It
think
did not.
that?
Then COVID happened and then it.
we're gonna try and start some
That's all.
possible some
We
changes,
think
so.
since we started, we came here today, it's being, a nice fresh start to me possibly potentially moving forward with the quarterly, city council and, school board.
And hopefully next time we'll have action numbers for you, that'd be great.
That way we can, hit back and forth statistics here, numbers here on our side and what we can do, to advocate both sides. Yeah. I mean, we gotta start somewhere.
It's great. Yeah, agreed. Yeah, there's lots of things to be worked out for sure. And it's gonna take all of us
It is.
and our community and reaching out and advocating.
Sometimes you're
and
gonna
all
have to-
that.
It's gonna, we're gonna have to put
This
words
is
to
the
the side
venue it needs to
again.
happen and not out there like it has been.
I will say though,
Exactly.
my little old ladies always come asking me questions. Yeah. So they do ask questions and I always do refer them, when they do have things to Dandy, who's our superintendent, and also to our student Steve,
Mhm.
when they have issues. So,
That was my name too.
All right. Okay, so the next thing on the agenda is school improvement project and plans. And so I'm gonna pass this on.
Pick one, Pastor.
Sorry. So I have included this in at your table there, or your seat, part of it. Just a reminder as to, what the bond was that we were covering, what we asked for. And this part is kind of hard to see in the slide deck, but if you look here at the very bottom of the paragraph, it says projects are under budget, remodeling elementary cafeteria, athletic field, restrooms, bleachers, press box, field lighting, outdoor student spaces and structures added. So,
Yeah, the other side, I was focusing on the paper, that's right.
just writing off.
Oh, that, okay.
oh, sorry, yeah.
One
So, you'll notice we have the church football field, right? I don't know if you noticed that.
Bradford Field?
Yeah, that one. And we'll talk about that later in here, but, there were components of the, bond where people made it really clear in the first two bond attempts that we tried to pass in the recent history that they wanted nothing, going to athletics for facilities. And so we cut out all of that. But we did put this little caveat in here that if there were additional monies left over, that we could repair some of these things. And, of course, we get the turf football field done and then septic line went out at the blockhouse. And that septic line is like 60 years old. So we have really beautiful porta potties out there right now. And we have 3 state playoff games for sponsoring this weekend for soccer. So, it's not the best look, but we're trying. I don't know what to say. It just never stops.
You just put a sign up and let them know. It happens to the best of us.
So, and then there was just a reminder again of what projects we were looking at for each of the 3 buildings, and then security for the technology and security for the overall district. And then you should have all received a construction update. We're mailing those home. I don't know if you got that. It's this little flyer here. You got one.
Yes.
And so it's also on our website though. So if you have there's QR codes on all of these pages. It takes you right to the website. But the other thing that we've done is that we archived and left everything up from the last bond attempt. So from the 2024 effort, it's all of the mailers we put out, all the information we put out there, so that people in 5 years, whatever, 6 to 10 years, people can't say, oh, well, you said you were going to build a new swimming pool and you never did it. Well, no, we never said that. There it is. So, and then I just wanted to share the bid schedule. This is the fun part, right? Where you have contractors coming in and looking at the different projects. And so we had a big bid package due on the 16th, or bid date on the 16th of October. They'll start rolling in here pretty soon. And so the Gervais HVAC system, starts November 11th, And then we've got the elementary school, the 8th of January, and the high school summer work, the February 10th date. Just so you know that when you sell the bonds, so we sold the bonds in August of 2024, you have to spend 5% by the 6-month mark. So you either had to completely spend or encumbered it. We did not have a problem hitting that deadline. The 85% within 3 years, so that is August of 2027. We should be fine with that mark. And then you have a total of 5 years to spend all bond funds. And they do that because they're used in previously, not here, but historically there have been districts that passed a bond and then just hung on to the money. And so that doesn't look good for anyone. So we want to not do that. There's this is what the middle school is going to look like. This is kind of the parking here and then the drive-through for the buses, but this is the front entry of the new middle school. And you can kind of see over here is the current middle school main modular. And then on the back side of the building, this is the cafeteria and the library. So the cafeteria has lots of great window lighting space. And then you've got some science classrooms that are here. This is the current gym right there. So they're constructing the middle school. So the idea that if whoever's in this seat next, because it's not going to be me going for another bond, that they can fix the 8th grade modulars, which are the oldest in 1999. So
I remember when there was a
yeah,
tennis court.
yeah, oh
Parking
yeah,
lot.
yeah. So
Yeah.
when I came back to Gervais the second time, I'm like, this is the parking lot for the middle school.
Yeah.
This is the tennis court. What happened?
Yep.
So change, right? It's that change nobody wants. This is a drawing or rendering of the cafeteria. This actually is going to be like a Murphy bed stage. You know, the Murphy beds come out of the walls. So it's going to come out of the wall, and in here will be actually the podium and the sound system and all of that. And then there will also be, I think they've decided to move this screen over to the other wall, but it's going to be a really beautiful community space. And that's what we've designed the majority of this building to be, not just, you know, the school for our kids, but space for community meetings. The library will be very welcoming and available for, you know, smaller 25 group or 25 people community space. And it's also going to be sectioned off from the rest of the classrooms. So it would be really easy to contain. There'll be bathrooms right there. So people can use that space and benefit from, you know, their tax dollars.
Are you gonna rent out like you
We
do
are.
at the high school?
Yes, we are. Will be available for that. So the non-bond grant funded projects, we talked a little bit about the football field there in all its glory. And this was part of the grant that we got from the group in Salem, but also monies that we get from our online charter school funded the majority of this. And we have a well that we had used to water all of those fields. The football field alone, I had Creighton do an analysis a few years ago because he's the science guy. And we calculated that during the month of August and in September, we were having to use 97,000 gallons of water a week. So we felt like, okay, well that's a really important, I mean, even though it's well, it's still part of the water table and it frees up water for some farmer or someone else. So, and then we were also able to reseed and fill in the soccer field from the dirt that got excavated for the middle school. So that has helped out a lot. So yeah, we think it's a really great asset, and we are already getting inquiries from all sorts of people and groups about running the field in the wintertime. The lights are beautiful. You can program them from your phone and turn off and on when you need them to do that. So we're pretty happy about that. I don't know, who's walked the community walking path? Only because we did it on in-service.
And I watched it with my kids.
Okay.
They've gone over to watch softball.
Yeah. So we received a grant from MODA and also a wellness grant. And so we put in this community walking path. I mean, it serves two purposes. It's a walking path for staff as well as community that we open it up when school's not in session. But now it also created a mile-long loop in addition with our track, and so we can host cross-country meets because you have to have a mile. So I was next time we meet, well, if it's quarterly, it will be in the winter, so maybe we'll wait till spring. We should walk the path because it's really, there's garbage cans out there. We've kind of set up little exercise areas. And so it's a pretty fantastic thing. And really Julie Powers is the shout out for that. The bond tax assistance grant. So you have a little brochure. This is last year's brochure. We'll redo it in January. But that was one of the tools that we used to help voters with the idea that, you know, there is assistance for our lower income families who might not be able to afford the increase of the bond brought to their property taxes or their rent, depending on, you know, how they live in town. And we set aside $10,000 because we were prepared to fund up to $10,000. The grants were $200 application or a unit or family unit, and we got 2. So we fully funded the grant requests of $400. I'm hoping that you know, with publicity and more people getting the grant, that word will spread. But yeah, I was kind of disappointed that more people didn't apply for it because we also mailed these out to each individual home, just knowing our socioeconomic. It was in Spanish as well. So
I hope about it. People are starting to see the tax bill.
yeah, it'll
Timeline,
more,
right? I totally.
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
over the time
Yeah,
limit now.
There's actually been a complaint about
The time.
the
frame
tax
is weird.
bonds already on people's tax
Oh,
papers.
yeah, well, I just pointed out it's less than if they were in Woodford.
And someone did mention that the school is doing this. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it was
Yeah.
mentioned.
And it's on the website. They can find a little link there to it. And so, and we had a couple of people that applied. They had some questions. We had to help them with part of the application, and so there's a learning curve there. But it's like the only.
What was the turnaround time for their funding? Like, so they applied to take like 6 months?
Oh no,
9
it was
months?
like a week.
Oh, that's cool.
Because they had the deadline. I can't remember what the deadline was. April.
Yeah, it was
20th or
like
whatever it
yeah,
was.
March, April.
And
yeah.
so Karen and I were able to get everything processed. They have their checks by May 5th.
Oh,
So,
that's cool.
It
Yeah.
was really an out of the box thinking, and that it's really due to Danny. So I thought it would be, I know that a friend of mine I know applied for it and got it, but and she desperately needed it, you know, and it was specifically for folks that really needed that help. And so it was there because we heard a lot about low income older folks being worried with it. And so I really thought that they would apply for it. We just need to maybe
Advertise a little bit.
yeah, because I felt like we did a pretty good job advertising.
But I think, like you said, people
Forget about it,
by
yeah.
April, people are not thinking about their property.
Right, and then they're thinking, oh, it's gonna
yeah.
take 6 months to even
Right.
get, what's the
Yeah.
point?
Yeah.
But if you tell them, hey, no,
Right.
you're gonna get your money
Yeah.
back in like 3 weeks, they might go, oh, okay.
Okay, it's worth it.
Right.
Yeah. And then finally, this is a picture here of a city that got an Oregon Parks and Recreation grant, and they just opened this fall with, I think it's like 6 pickleball courts and 2 tennis courts. And I really want to put a pickleball court in by the community walking path. So if we could somehow partner to get that, like we would totally.
I know the people up in Ivy Woods have been
Dying.
extremely upset
Oh.
about the lack of park.
Yes.
Almost all of them want. Well, I should speak for them, want a pickleball court, so I think you will find it lost.
Kyle's really good at finding those grants, but
Okay.
like we said, we have to
You
get
can
our.
start like a fundraiser.
Yeah.
In fact,
totally.
Mhm.
Yeah.
one of the problems that, if I remember correctly, that the former council had with the park was they said they didn't have the land to do it. Could we somehow get that money put in, because it is expires, or they spent it for something else? Did they spend it for something else?
No, it's
It got moved, I thought. It didn't.
I thought it got moved too.
It did to the
So,
water.
so we, sorry, let me, I don't think we're sure about this. So, when Ivy Woods came in, they give an option. Either they could build a park or they could set, I think once it was $75,000 aside for a park, and the former council kept on saying, we can't find a place to put it, can't find a place to put it, can't find a place to put it. And I think they moved it somewhere
They
else
moved it to the water.
temporarily.
The water.
Because-
The water master
Mhm.
plan. Yep.
But I do know that people have memories like elephants when it comes to money. They're like, we want that park, and I know because the argument was from people I knew was, in fact, I've been heard in the last 2 weeks. We're not getting our park. Can I get my money back? And I was like, no. I mean, that's not the way that works as far as I know. You can ask council.
So is there 75,000?
I don't know if it's
No,
that high,
It
but
got
it's-
allocated into the water. Yeah,
the old council allocated it to go to the water waste, the
Treatment
new treatment plant.
Yep.
And I don't think anything's been put back into it.
Well, they borrowed it from,
That's my understanding. But
I don't
you have
think
to
they
look into it.
actually,
it wasn't
Well,
like a
they-
borrow, it was like
correctly.
they said,
Okay.
we're not gonna use it for this anymore, we can all vote and use it for this instead.
And that's why the
So we
people
voted
in
to
the
do that
ID
instead.
ones want their money back. They're like, we.
because you could check the park fund, and I know the park fund has money, but I don't think it has.
But
That
magic
much.
money magically comes. Football court, next partner.
And then, Rick passed out the draft resolution, so I'm gonna thank the city ahead of time, even though you haven't signed it yet. But, so we are going for a seismic grant. We're hoping to get that seismic grant for the cafeteria at the high school. With the idea that that would be a community used, emergency area. Got food there, it's got kitchen and the auditorium are kind of stage with, communication system. Because there were really only 3 areas in the school district setting that qualified for seismic grant. The high school gym, which we've already got it done now, so we just moved on. The cafeteria and some weird little spot in the middle of the elementary. Like, why would I tear out all those walls and rebuild them when it's not even used? So we're gonna go for a cafeteria and hope that we get that. And that application, we have to turn it in right after the first of the year, but then we don't hear about it until May. High school cafeteria, yeah.
I saw Walker, Chief Walker news.
Yes, thank you very much. So yeah, we've got letters coming from the city, Data Vision, Woodburn Fire District, and the Community Progress Team. So I like we pretty much got every agency that is, and the police department is gonna do. So. Then the final thing I just wanted to share with you, because I know many of you are newer to the council. We, back in 2022, had Hilda Rossellini, who's our grant writer, do a joint presentation with a city manager, and I can't remember which one she came in with. But they did a presentation about how the district and the city can work together. And then she also listed like different kinds of grants you can apply for and where they would be. She's fabulous. She's still getting us grants. She's the one that helped us write the grant to get the food truck. And so if, like, as you're planning and working through things, take a look at this document, and if there's something you guys want to revisit or ask questions about, we could, of course, be more than happy to do that.
I'd like to say the same thing.
Yeah, I know. And then I also give you a copy of our strategic plan, just so you would know where we think we're going this year.
You can go on the Marion County website. Or about Marion County website, 60 minutes.
Anybody have anything else?
I'm just gonna put it out there. So it's kind of the elephant in the room. I know that our attorney has contacted your attorney about asking for mediation with regard to sidewalks, maybe have an independent third party to look at the challenges and see if we can come up with a creative solution. Um, he's not received a response, so I just wanted to bring up that the district is desperately wanting to see if we can come to some kind of creative process or solution.
I'm sorry, which we reached out to the city attorney, right? So I haven't heard. this yet.
I don't want to speak, but, multiple times in the last 2 weeks, like, and
You didn't contact him on Friday?
contacted him on Friday with kind of the non-answers. And so then our attorney emailed back and said, okay, this is perfect. This is a perfect scenario to have a mediation. Here's some options. What do you think? Because he's secured an independent third party that like top in his field in this land use discussions. And did not receive a response from the attorney.
I actually have a few little talking points about that as well. If we brought it up. And some of the things that I just kind of wanted to bring up was I just would love to know what the council thinks is reasonable. Because I know that we really do need to address this, and there's just a lot of things I think that maybe kind of led up to this, but you know, the voters really approved the bond, and we worked with engineers and architects to really create an affordable plan that focused on the educational improvements. And that plan included upgrades to the edges of our property, but not the offsite infrastructure like a sidewalk to an abandoned building. So that late addition of a sidewalk changes the scope of what the voters approved. And so to pay for it, we'd have to cut or delay improvements that our students and our families were promised. And we're concerned about safety as well. But that sidewalk would remove the mature trees right now that previously act as a barrier between the students and the highway. And it could encourage unsafe crossing near the freeway. And we're not against pedestrian safety. Obviously, we're for smart, safe, and fair solutions. I know that the city had the opportunity to see the PowerPoint presentation that our engineer put together. And in his presentation, he says the figure for just that 2-foot path was at least $150,000 to $160,000, with all of the other unknowns to add, meaning permitting, street closure, all that kind of stuff. And so I want to point out that we had been asking for that final report since the 1st of August, so that we would have time to maybe help price out the recommendations. And unfortunately, we didn't receive that report until August 21st, which only gave us 8 business days, and that included a holiday weekend to get those estimates and information. So that short time frame really was difficult for us to get what we needed from our subject matter experts. And so I just want to point that out. So it was not done in any way to not get you that information on time or anything like that. Furthermore, I think that the city council already had the safe routes to school report, which you guys worked with us on. And I think that on pages like 9 and 11, it clearly identifies the goals, the objectives, and which agency is responsible. So the school district wasn't named as a responsible agency for the street and sidewalk improvements. Instead, the district is named as the agency responsible for educating our students on how to get to school safely and promoting alternative methods of getting to school besides cars and buses, as well as working with parents on those issues. So on page 34, it lists the construction recommendations, and that part that says Gervais school infrastructure needs and recommendations on page 36 lists what needs to happen for kids to access school safety, but it's the city's responsibility as further outlined on pages 27 and beyond. Even the category prioritization criteria includes language on how the city and schools should prioritize projects in the community. This is evident in table 1 on page 36 because the school district would not be responsible for Highway 99, First Street, Black Walnut, etc. And that's why we're really asking for the collaboration. We do have, like we said, a skilled grant writer. You know, I'm hoping that we can all come together to pursue the Safe Routes to School and other funding to help us with this. I think working together is going to help us find the outside resources that we need for both the city and the school. And we could create a joint planning committee to align infrastructure with school needs, which we basically talked about tonight, hosting community forums to gather input and exploring shared use agreements to reduce costs. We all want safe streets, strong schools, and an engaged community, and we're asking for a broader solution, one that respects the legal framework, but also considers the real world impact on our students and our community. And we're asking really a collaborative team group effort. I know that we can explore alternatives, like amending the code, pursuing grants, creating that joint infrastructure plan that, you know, we were talking about, that's going to serve both the city and the school needs. And as public servants, and I take that very seriously, I think that we need to consider that the required condition is not proportional to project impacts, as we already have adequate connectivity. So I really request that the council maybe look and, really I request that the council approve the Gervais Middle School development project referenced as site development review file SDR 2025-01, adopting the findings and conditions of approval contained in the original staff decision signed on August 21st, 2025. Except that condition 6A regarding public pedestrian improvements on Douglas Avenue is removed, and directing staff to prepare revised findings consistent with that action. That's my request as a community member and as a board member. So I hope that we can figure out a way to work together and to actually get things done for our school and not have to have a payment of $500,000 for a sidewalk. It's going to go to an abandoned building when there are many areas in Gervais that truly need sidewalks that are going to be much more helpful. I can tell you I live on the corner of Ivy and 3rd, and that is a really dangerous corner right there. No sidewalks. My poor neighbor, his fence has been totaled, I don't know, 3-5 times. This is crazy, especially during the winter. So my concern as a community member, especially, is that there's so many areas that are unsafe in Gervais that I don't understand why the council would be requesting that we spend $500,000 to have a sidewalk when there's so many areas here in Gervais that really needed attention. So especially when you can grant a variance.
So that goes back to our infrastructure goal of tomorrow. So that again, infrastructure is one of our main goals. We're not asking anybody to fork out a bunch of money. That's not our goal at all. Our goal is also, again, so making sure everybody's safe. Danny stated that grant you're going for is going to be for seismic, right, which would be a community space, correct? We could also make the sidewalk my community space, right? I'm just
No,
asking.
I disagree.
Okay.
And I just wish that we could get into mediation and figure out how to do a path forward that could include working together to get a Safe Routes to School grant. I've never been in a city that said, let's just cut down 7 trees. It's not fun.
So here's my problem with this premise is it's been pitched a lot, and I've heard the talking points of building a sidewalk in nowhere and just wanting to cut down trees, and as if that's the motivation. And that's those kind of conversations and those kinds of framing is kind of what gets us in these positions where no one's saying, hey, why didn't you vote? Why did you think that sounded a good idea? No one's asking that question. They're just assuming we just want to rip down some trees, or we just want to make the school district pay, or in some ways where it's punish the school district. And that's not the case. Like, those kind of arguments and this kind of rhetoric is the backbiting that we're talking about. If you want to have a conversation about well, you have to ask you, but individually, why we voted the way we voted, I'm happy to have that conversation. I'm happy to discuss possible solutions. But from my understanding at this point, we voted on it. It's already gone past us. It's gone to the next step. Like it was resolved that night. We did vote.
You went from 150 to 160 on an appeal to a full sidewalk on $500,000. There's other options that you could do. You could do a pilot safety zone. You could do temporary signage and monitoring to assess pedestrian patterns before committing to a permanent infrastructure.
I believe
You
we
could
did ask for more time
And Danny told us no.
to get,
She said we have to make a decision right now.
What?
we were,
We asked for more time.
we did ask for more
Yeah.
time. To get
Because
more
my
information.
impression was they were gonna rule on the appeal,
So
not change the condition.
that was our ruling appeal.
No,
That wasn't,
it was not.
it was not.
That's not.
That appeal
No.
was separate. It's like, that's that. And then
It's
it went
either
to
yes
here.
or no. Can you have,
Well,
can you have it?
let me interject you. Have you talked to Anderson within the last 24 hours?
I spoke with him this afternoon. Like 2 hours before the meeting, well, 2 hours before my 5 o'clock meeting.
At the staff level, there was direction given to our attorney to have a conversation. It hasn't happened.
Okay.
And I think at this point, that's the best way to leave it. Council felt they got backed into a corner and not being able to have more time to consider it because Danny did not want a decision that night. And quite honestly, the council did their best to abide by Danny's wishes. So,
I was in line too.
I was there. And as that may seem that she was asking that, that was also your attorney telling us that nobody else could talk, nobody else could interject anything. And she was simply trying to decide, if you're making a decision, we need to have an answer because we have to move forward on certain timelines, deadlines,
I'm
whatnot.
sorry, I was there too. And there was a point
yes, I
where,
understand that.
where Danny said that she had something to say, and I specifically said, no, wait. Danny had something to say, and she's like, I just wanted to like emphasize the importance of having this done. There was, from my perspective, again, this is just my perspective. I wanted to hear all the evidence. I wanted to have a reason to make the best decision possible. I can go into just the reason I made my decision. I think that's just pontificating at this point and just exacerbating our conversation. No one is out to hurt anybody. Like,
Why did you move from 150 to 500,000 on something?
No,
like that?
The question actually comes down to,
The school went in and asked for an exemption, correct? And that is the only thing that you went in to ask for. But somehow, and as I said, I was online, so I didn't say anything. And then all of a sudden, the next thing you guys aren't ruling on that exemption. That's what she was asking. Is it a yes or a no? If you would have said no, then we know that we have to pay up whatever that 2 feet variance is.
Right.
But then it went from that to a full-blown sidewalk. And that's what we're trying to understand.
why
So
that happened?
I'm just letting you know that that's what happened.
No, are you asking why that happened?
Yes, I'm like, but how does that happen? How
I'm
do
the
you
one
go
who made,
from-
I'm the one who made the motion, so I can tell you.
Why?
There you go, it's really weird. But my stance on it was that we were making people follow code. The commentary was made about the expanding it 2 feet. And every single comment that was made was rebutted with how unsafe it would be. Also, the presentation was done with some things I just know to not be true.
Like what?
I'll come out to say now. That there's been no change in the traffic or anything like that in Judas. We all know there has been. That's like the #1 complaint we get on the council is the infrastructure in the roads and how fast cars are coming through. And my thought was at the time, and still to this point, I know kids hang out there. And what is the safest thing to keep a kid? Nothing. an extra 3 feet or 2 feet, or a full-blown sidewalk with a curb? What would be the most safe? And our city engineer said every evidence says that a sidewalk would be more safe. Our former police chief, after I got off the podium, said to me, almost verbatim, "You read my mind because that's the safest option you can do." I don't know what to tell you. We don't think the same as far as this goes. Like, I'm a teacher, and I'll tell my kids, I tell them this every week. My number one job is not to teach them, it's to keep them safe. Then it's make sure they're good people, and then we worry about math and reading. And when I look at those priorities, and I look at number one, the safest thing for our kids is to have a sidewalk. And so we may not agree on this, but it's not like we're sitting here going, hey, you have to do this because we're being mean, evil, spiteful people. We're saying, hey, this is where our code is. We made Dollar General do it. This seems to be the safest option for our kids with the increased traffic. This is what we need to do to make sure our kids are safe. That's my take on it. Now, if anybody wants to sit down and talk to me and say, hey, I don't see it that way, we can have that discussion. But no one's done that.
I don't see it that way.
Well, that's fine.
I mean, I have no problem having a discussion with you about it.
Then let's sit down and talk sometime. I don't know if this is the place.
It's not the place right
No.
now, but I would definitely,
Yeah, that's fine.
I mean, that's the thing, it's like, we're not hiding, I'm not hiding the feelings of the fact that there's all of this other stuff that's happening here and all this other history
Yeah.
there. And I think that needs to be acknowledged as
I
well.
would love to have that conversation with you. I would love to. We need other people's perspectives. That's the same thing with the police department. Like, I'm operating off the information given to me. This is what makes the most sense from what information I have, and I vote accordingly. I've told my neighbors, I have no stake in whether that sidewalk's built or not. My kids don't go to school, I don't travel this way, but I want to do what's best for the community. I have 4 meetings the next 2 weeks that I don't miss a single one. I skip coaching my kids' soccer team because I want to do what's best for the city. If you can convince me that it's best for the city, I will fully support you. Like, 100%.
You're asking us to put in a portion of a sidewalk, taking the money from the bond when this school was falling apart, because you think that that's the most important thing, safety-wise, when you can make an.
So like I said, I'd love to have a conversation with you. I don't know if this is the place.
Well, it's,
I think going forward, just so for awareness, for agreement, because I know of for these council, we did reach out, the board's supposed to talk to each other. We are new to the council, we all know that, we make mistakes, I don't know if we made a mistake here, but we also know that this is probably gonna go to Luba. And if Luba comes back and tells us that we made a mistake, it's on us, we'll understand, but going forward, I think we have to wait till at least lawyers come back to us and tell us what's going on. Because I'm unaware right now.
I mean, I just don't feel like that's very collaborative, that we talked about all of that and then,
I find it interesting the only way that collaboration happens is the agreement.
oh, I don't think that's true at all.
But so we made a ruling. Ms. Jones was there when she did the presentation, so was Andy. You had all the evidence. We made a decision. You may not think it was a decision, that's fine. For our attorney, it was a decision. And I'm not a lawyer. So I take my attorney, the city attorneys, I believe them. We've moved on. Well, I should say I have moved on because we also started worrying about police and other things, and in planning what our goal setting thing is. If our lawyer comes back and says, hey, we need to have another talk, we'll have another talk. I know you're frustrated by the decision. You made it very clear. I don't know what to say besides that we made a decision that you don't like. And if you want to have a conversation about it, happy to do that. If we can somehow revisit it, I'm more than happy to do that too. I'm not opposed to any of it. It's just it's also true we might just don't agree.
Okay, most likely we don't agree, but I think the majority of voters don't agree either. People that actually passed the bond, people that we basically have, taken a survey. I mean,
Okay.
I would love.
I'm gonna stop right there. I read that survey. That was not a neutral survey.
You should send out your own survey.
I don't need to.
We are waiting for information from the lawyer. I think this is going nowhere.
Yeah,
And
it's
it's just
fine.
wasting
Yeah, no,
everybody's
I
time.
know.
All we're doing is arguing and nothing's gonna get solved. And we can't even solve anything here. We have to wait for the lawyer to do their jobs. And so this is just pointless, what we're discussing now.
100% agree.
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah.
like, we are trying to collaborate, but like, Jesse said, he wants to have what's best for the city and we're at what's best for the school. And so that's where we're clashing. And then this is not going anywhere, right? I think we just, emotions aside, I think we've got too much emotions into this right now. I think, yeah, you're right. It's safe to stop.
Yeah,
I think it's the perfect stopping point.
Agreed.
Let's move forward. Have efforts.
All right, well, if no one has anything else to say, then the meeting's adjourned. Thank you, David.